Okay, so today we are going to further our discussion about positive and negative numbers, and we are going to extend that discussion to rational numbers. Rational numbers are numbers that can be expressed as one integer divided by another integer, where b is not a zero. We can write rational numbers in the form of ab or in decimal form. Okay, so basically what this means is that rational numbers, or our fractions and decimals, can also be positive and negative. So real quickly, we're gonna answer these couple of questions just to think about them. Why does b have to be non-zero? Well, since b is our divisor down here in our fraction, when we divide a number by 0, we get a different type of number that you will talk about later, but not for this purpose. So we're just going to say b has to be non-zero because a rational number has to give us a decimal number of some sort when we divide it out. And when we divide by 0, if you divided it on a calculator, you would see that you would get an error message for most calculators. So are integers rational numbers? Yes. Integers can be rational numbers because if we have the number 3, that equals the rational number 3 over 1, or we could even go and say 6 over 2. These are rational forms for our integer of 3. And the same thing with a negative. If I go negative 3, I can represent it as negative 3 over 1 or negative 6 over 2. Okay, same thing. All right, so is 0 a rational number? And the answer to that question is also yes, because we can represent 0 as 0 over 1 or 0 over 2. Now, again, 0 is a rational number because if we place 0 in the place of a, then we can take and divide 0 into different groups. But we don't want to divide numbers by 0 just yet. All right, so each positive and negative number are paired together, and those two numbers are called opposites. They're called opposites because they are the same distance from 0 on the number line, but they're on different sides of 0. So 1 and negative 1, positive 1 and negative 1, are opposites because they are the same distance from 0. They're just opposites of 0. It's kind of like if 0 was our mirror and we could fold the number line in half, our opposite numbers should match up. If we added our opposites together, we would notice that they would have a difference of 0. So like negative 1 plus a positive 1, if we go back to our game, if I score plus 1 at my point, and then I added an incorrect negative 1, I'm going to get a 0. Okay, so opposites will always have a sum of 0 as well. So negative 2 plus positive 2 would give us 0. Negative 3 plus positive 3 would give us 0. Positive 4 plus a negative 4 gives us 0, so on and so forth. So let's take a look at a few questions. All right, so what we have here is a number line, and this is taken from question A1 on page 12 in your book. So we're going to estimate the values for A, B, C, D, and E. So I'm going to come down here and say A1 is right here for point A. So point A is at a negative 7. Point B is at negative 4. Okay, so not a whole lot of estimation yet. Point C, okay, C is here. It's in between two whole numbers on our number line, or two integers on our number line. It looks to be about halfway between negative 2, and this would be a negative 1 right here. So if I think about positive, what number would come halfway between 1 and 2? That would be 1.5. Then the same would be true for our opposites as well. So what number would be halfway between a negative 1 and a negative 2? And the answer to that question would be a negative 1.5, or for those of us like decimals, negative 1.5. Okay, and then we have point D. which is over here halfway between 4 and this would be 5. So point D would be positive 4.5 or 4.5. And we can also write that as with our positive sign up here at the top. And then we have point E. Okay, and point E is very close to this number right here would be 7. Okay, so it's going to be greater than 6.5 because 6.5 would be about there, and it looks to be about halfway between 6.5 and 7. So I know that half of a half would be a fourth. So I'm going to say that point E is at positive 6 3/4, or for the decimal people, 6.75. All right. So now we're going to go on to A2, and we are simply finding the opposites for this. So A2, the opposites are in red. Okay, so I'm going to just go back over here, and the opposite of 7 would be positive 7. So this would be, we'll just call this A1. So that would be 7. For B, we're at negative 4, so the opposite of negative 4 would be here. So this would be B, the opposite of B. So that would be a positive 4. Now, I'm going to write in the plus signs up here for the positive numbers, but we do not have to do that. Positive numbers are considered to be positive even without the sign. So if we write 10, we assume that this number is positive. That's just a mathematical convention. So we have to write the sign of our negative integers, but we don't have to put the positive sign in front of our positive integers. I know that's a little strange, but that's the way it is. All right, so let's go over here. Point C was at 1.5, or negative 1.5, or negative 1.5. So I'm going to come over here. This would be 1, and so the opposite of C would be about there. Okay, and that would be positive 1.5, or positive 1.5. All right. D was at a positive 4.5 or positive 4.5. So the opposite of that would be over here. Now we're not going to want to put it between 4 and 3. We have to be careful when we come to the other side of the number line because numbers work. We go further to the left. So here's 4. This would be negative 5. So our halfway point would be there. This would be D1, which would be negative 4.5 or 4.5. No, negative. Got to put my negative signs. And then finally, point E was over here, again, between positive 6 and a positive 7. So we're going to come over here, and we're going to go between a negative 6 and a negative 7, and we're going to say that point E1, or E prime, is right there, and we are going to say that the opposite of positive 6 3/4 would be a negative 6 3/4, or negative 6.75. All right, so that illustrates our point of opposites. Now, what I want you to do prior to coming to class tomorrow is on page 12 in your book, you have A3, where it talks about a thermometer as a vertical number line, and A4. So before coming to class tomorrow, I want you to complete A3 and A4 from page 12. All right, see you in class.